ever since India faced a diplomatic backlash from Muslim countries over comments made by BJP spokespersons on the Prophet, the BJP has told its leaders to focus on development issues only on TV debates. And they have gone out of their way to stress that the Prime Minister's agenda is to take all communities along. However, that's not borne out on the ground. Hateful comments against Muslims is not new. In fact, it has been quite common amongst BJP spokespersons, especially on polarizing TV debates. Most end up being rewarded and not punished for it. However, Nupur Sharma clearly crossed a red line by making derogatory comments about the Prophet. But is Sabka Saath just a slogan? We still haven't heard a word from the Prime Minister on all of this, condemning this sort of language. The BJP, by the way, will no longer have a single Muslim MP or MLA after Mukhtar Naqvi was not re-nominated to the Rajya Sabha recently. Bulldozers in Uttar Pradesh are going after the homes of Muslims who the government says allegedly took part in protests, throwing due process to the wind. The right-wing ecosystem that supports the BJP is strongly defending Nupur Sharma even today. They can't understand why what she did was a problem. In fact, a study by New York University's Stern Center for Business and Human Rights has just come out and found that right-wing influencers have been at the forefront of posting rabid, anti-Muslim, hateful content on social media, in particular YouTube. I'm joined now by Paul Barrett, the Deputy Director and Senior Research Scholar who has written that report. Mr. Barrett, thanks for joining us. Your report says that influencers backing the BJP have used YouTube videos in particular to spread hateful content that targets Muslims and women. Tell us more about this and how they're weaponizing YouTube.
Yeah, well, YouTube is very effective because it is by far the most prominent long-form video platform, and that form of communication is something that can be very persuasive and can make the viewer assume that whatever the performer on the platform is saying is true and valid because it looks like real life as opposed to just being text. For that reason, and because of YouTube's extraordinary reach, more than 450 million users in India alone, its largest market, makes YouTube very, very influential.
Well, what is some of the hateful content that you actually came across while researching this report?
Sure. Well, keeping the focus on India, I mean, there are politicians who suggested, Hindu politicians suggesting that Muslims ought to be taken out and shot. Young men making videos from public source images of Muslim women and proposing facetiously, of course, that they could be bought and sold. But that kind of video prompts others to comment on the women and to talk about raping them and so forth. And then another way that the platform is misused is that old events that have taken place years ago are repurposed and made to look as if they've happened just recently. So if there's been a conflict or violence or military activity, it can be very confusing for viewers who are not paying close attention.
Finally, though, Mr. Barrett, what does that say about moderation on YouTube? As you've pointed out, the popular support for the BJP actually puts big tech companies in a dilemma when it comes to balancing free speech issues with hate speech.
Well, there is a dilemma, as you say, but the proper way to resolve the dilemma is to play by the rules that the company has itself set out. So that if there are rules against hateful speech or conduct, those rules ought to be enforced. The bigger problem for YouTube, I think, than the pressure from the government is just the vastness of YouTube itself. The company was set up and grew so quickly that it now supports content that it itself has trouble analyzing. I mean, they do much better, for example, in English in the United States, where content moderation system, both automated and human, kind of understands what people are saying. But in India, where people are using multiple languages that the moderation systems are not so good at discerning, you end up with much less effective moderation.
All right, Paul Barrett, thank you very much for joining us. Paul Barrett there from New York University. They've authored a report on the kind of hateful content we are seeing on social media platforms, YouTube in particular, against Muslims, particularly as far as India is concerned. Well, let's go straight across to our panelists tonight. And let me first go across to Akash Banerjee. He's a political satirist and host of the Deshbhakt. Akash, just to first look at how social media is weaponized the way that it is, and you heard Paul Barrett just now. The thing is that after this whole Nupur Sharma fiasco, we're clearly seeing a churning within the sort of right-wing ecosystem where on one hand you have official BJP spokespersons that are not coming on TV debates to talk about all of this right now because, they're going to talk about Garibi Kalyan. But on social media, you can see that the right-wing ecosystem is sort of completely rallying around her. Does this report surprise you in any way?
We've been seeing such things for a very long time. The weaponization of YouTube is actually the pinnacle of what is happening. You see, WhatsApp is the wild, wild west. Facebook, we all know how well it was integrated into the system. I don't have to remind you of the Ankita's episode. YouTube, I would dare to say, has been the best moderated system that you can find. Their content moderation is much, much more stiffer than what you would get on a Twitter, what you would get on a Facebook, there is nothing on WhatsApp.
And yet this happens.
And the fact is that there you have this sort of stuff that is coming out. After what has happened with Nupur, we saw a wave of anger against the BJP establishment. They were the ones who were saying it right from the beginning, is that you have gone ahead and appeased these guys. So they are rejoicing after this whole incident of violence, is because what this whole violence has done since Friday is actually legitimized them. we've had videos saying that, look, you didn't use bulldozers in West Bengal, and that's why you are having this problem. So a mood is created. An argument is made, is hardcore action against anyone who dares to question or protest has to be crushed down with bulldozers. That is the sort of vitriol that we are seeing on YouTube right now.
See, the question that we're posing tonight is whether this whole Sabka Saath slogan is actually just a slogan or whether the BJP really means it. Waris Pathan is a spokesperson of the AIMIM party. Waris Pathan today, and especially in light of what has happened, does this kind of ring hollow?
Well, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas has been seen as just a jumla. Where is Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas? Where is the Vikas of the country today? Let me tell you, Nidhi, today 3 former Supreme Court judges, 3 former High Court judges, 6 noted senior Supreme Court lawyers have written a letter to the Chief Justice of India saying that the condition in UP is such that the fundamental right of an individual has been infringed. Collective extrajudicial punishment is being meted out to a particular community by way of using these bulldozers and all. Is it not shameful? But the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh thinks himself that he is the Super Chief Justice of the country. I fail to understand. I want to remind him, sir, you are the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. Who has authorized you to use that kind of tactics? Will you follow the rule of law? Will you follow the Constitution? You have taken the oath of the Constitution, but you are following the tactic of instant justice, which is not to be prevalent in our country. We live in a democracy. And see, present scenario is such, Nidhi, you, me and all know, the lady Nupur Sharma, the fringe element as called by the BJP himself, where is she? Is she hiding? Is she absconding? There's an offence registered against her. There are FIRs registered against her in several states. But still the Modi government does not want to arrest her. She is the one who is responsible for the riots that is taking place in the country, for the bulldozers that are being used to bulldoze innocent people's home, for the students, young boys who are being hit with sticks in the lockups. She is responsible for all that. But she is not being arrested. Why? Why Modi does not stop that?
That doesn't condone violent protests either, if I could say that respectfully, whatever she may have said, and nor does it condone any death threats that she has received, which she has. None of those are called for either. And I think Akash Banerjee is right, because that has only sort of given the state another stick to beat people with. Those who are genuinely protesting and have grievances today are the ones at the receiving end of this. My question though, Geeta Bhatt, I want to come to you, is that I ask whether Sabka Saath is a genuine slogan simply because you look at the kind of anti-Muslim vitriol that the right-wing ecosystem continues to propagate. You look at the fact that in the past, BJP spokespersons have been rewarded for that. BJP leaders from the top downwards have made, comments, Shamshan, Kabristan, 80-20, from the Prime Minister to Yogi Adityanath. So it's not just like fringe spokespersons, who've said it. and the BJP will not even have a single Muslim MLA or MP in a few days from now. What is the Sabka Saath then?
Well, Modi, you see, if you look at the Modi government's tenure, first phase and the second phase, there has been, their development agenda has been development with dignity, and there is welfare without appeasement. And if you could give me time, I would just like to put in one or two figures out here, which very categorically show that all the minorities, they have been empowered by the government through their social welfare schemes. If you look at the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, it is 2.31 crore.
There's nobody in any state assembly that is a Muslim from the BJP.
I am coming to that.
Yeah.
If you could just give me a minute to speak, I'll come to this point also. 31% of these have been built up in the 25, minority dominated areas. Out of the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Nidhi Samman Yojana, 33% beneficiaries are minorities. Out of the 9 crore plus women who have got benefited by the Ujjwala Yojana, there also 31% of women, they are from minorities. So in all the schemes, there are various 22,000 crore was spent during the first phase of the Modi government on welfare schemes of the minorities. And the students have been getting, a large number of students have been getting scholarships. There are special Prime Minister scholarships for students from the state of Jammu Kashmir and across the country. Now coming to the point when you are saying that...
Geeta Bhatt, I'm going to just stop you for a second. Ma'am, just give me a second. Your audio is actually not okay. I really apologize for this. We're just going to dial you back so that we can hear you better. I'm really sorry. We're just going to fix that. Till then, let me go to Yogendra Yadav on this question. Is anybody buying the Sabka Saath slogan any longer? Yogendra Yadav.
Nidhi, most political slogans are not true. Slogans tend to be exaggeration of reality. However, there are slogans which say exactly the opposite of what is being done. So, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is not merely a routine exaggeration as most slogans are. It is actually meant to cover something that's exactly the opposite of what is being said. That is the real problem. The report that you are discussing today formalizes and authenticates what we have known in this country for quite some time. It is not BJP may have come out with latest set of instructions for its spokesperson about what they should not do. Now, the fact that ruling party in its instructions to its spokesperson has to say, please do not insult any other religion, that actually shows what the situation must have been. But that's only tip of the iceberg. You have second and third rung leaders who continue to say things that are absolutely obnoxious and illegal. Then there is a larger ecosystem, which is Frankenstein by now. This is a hate industry by now. But Nidhi, the most important communication is not your press release, not what your spokesperson says, not what is there on YouTube as a message. The most important message is when you demolish one house, invite the whole country to watch it, to make a spectacle and ritual out of it, and to give a message to 20 crore people, no matter who you are, no matter how legal you have been, no matter what you've been staying here for 20 years, 50 years, this can be demolished like this. Yeah. This, to my mind, is the biggest and perverse message that this country is witnessing.
Geeta Bhatt, I want to come back to that question I asked about representation, because you're rattling off data on the government's development schemes. But I come back to this, please answer this question. The country's ruling party, the BJP, has no Muslim representation now in none of the governments in which it's in power. I think there are 18 states. And no MPs any longer once Mukhtar Naqvi's gone from the Rajya Sabha. Not a single Muslim. How is that Sabka Saath? I apologize. We've lost Geeta Bhatt's audio again. Geeta Bhatt, I'm really sorry. We'll try to come back to you. Let's dial her in on the phone. But Akash Banerjee, is there a lesson from this entire episode with Nupur Sharma that it's going to be difficult to do one thing at home, or basically do the sort of bonhomie, we love Gandhi abroad, we are all inclusive when we go abroad, but we'll use the bulldozers when we are at home. Is it going to be more difficult to have that duality, or will it be back to business? What do you think?
Let me take a little bit of a contrarian point of view here, Nidhi, because if I know this guy called Bhakt Banerjee, and if I ask him, then he will say that who is Nidhi to ask why do you have to have Muslim representation? We are here, na? We will take care. When did we say that we will have Muslim representation? Our promise was Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. We will do it. Who are you to tell us who has to do it? So A, that line. B, Nidhi, you will see more of the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas being tom-tommed in the days to come. Please understand, there is nothing else to tom-tom. Had we become a $5 trillion economy today, had farmer income actually doubled by 2022, then you would have seen the government tom-tom this. Because there is nothing else, you will have to, this whole sim, everybody will have to be kept on a boil. So the internet, not your channel, not press releases, not press conferences, at a sub-nibble level, everybody will be told, look, we are not progressing because of these guys. Look, there is no peace because of these guys. And that is why the nation is not progressing. I see it on a daily basis on the internet. The conversations, the dignified conversations that television is attempting, nobody is even attempting that on YouTube. I can say whatever I want. And as Paul was mentioning,
I want
make
to know
it Hindi,
who's attempting the
and you can't stop
dignified
it.
conversations on TV. I mean, it's such a small minority. But let me ask
to
you.
take the Hindi channels, it is still dignified compared to what you are getting on the internet.
True. Geeta Bhatt, my deepest apologies again about the audio. Hopefully we can hear you now. On this question that I've been trying to ask you on Muslim representation and the BJP, may I hear the answer? Please go ahead.
Well, we have in this country, we have seen cases where ample
representation of Muslims, and yet the fundamental rights of the Muslim society, section of Muslim society were taken away. One of the glaring examples is of the Shah Bano case. There is an echo, if you can please correct it. Shah Bano case, where the Supreme Court had empowered these women, for getting benefited after their divorce. But because the Rajiv Gandhi government, which simply just bringing the Muslim Women Divorce Act, took away the right of the Muslim women to live in dignity after their divorce by taking away their, the welfare which they could have got. This is one example. So these are such examples also in this country. Now, and one more point I want to make over here, because the senior researcher who was present from the New York University, I'm sorry to say, very sweeping statements were made by him saying that Hindu leaders are coming out and they are saying that.
Question I'm asking you, isn't it a sad commentary that there is no Muslim representation in the Lok Sabha and in state assemblies from the BJP?
Who has said like that? Which Hindu political leader has said such
Madam Geeta ji, I am just asking you very humbly, just on this point, on lack of Muslim representation from the BJP in parliament and state assemblies. Also, may I add another question, that do you think the Prime Minister should speak up and condemn these hate comments once and for all? Because if it comes from him, at least a message will go out to everyone to stop.
You see, Prime Minister will definitely come out and speak for that there should be any kind of hate speeches, they need to be condemned. And so much so that Jamaat Ulema Hind has come out and they have, condemned and put out the whole timeline that how for almost 12 to 13 days.
I'm asking you specifically that, ma'am Geeta ji, please don't deviate. You're not answering my question. I've been trying to ask you about MPs and MLAs, Muslim MPs and MLAs from the BJP.
I just told you that there have been cases that there was just appeasement of the Muslim community. There was no.
So they should not be represented in legislatures.
It is not the point. It is not the point. You see such political question the political party can answer. I am not a party representative.
But you support them, so I'm asking you whether that's even better. You should have been in a position to fearlessly say that there should be Muslim representation from all communities. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time, and I'm sorry that we've struggled with all these technical issues today, but I think this is an issue we need to revisit in a little more detail, more than this. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us.